My story starts probably about 3 years ago. My wife and my family were looking for a new house. We looked around various places, couldn't find anything that was quite right. Eventually, I was waiting to pick my daughter up one day, looked online for one of the estate agents. There was a house, hadn't seen it before. I thought, perfect, we'll go and look at it. I had a look at it sort of the next day. Made an offer, and the offer was accepted. Basically everything went through. It was quite smooth as a sale goes. It's weird, walked into the house, and almost instantly walking into the house, although I'd viewed it before, it hadn't made itself obvious. I just felt really uncomfortable about the bottom of the stairs by the front door. Couldn't put my finger on it. It didn't feel right. There was something not quite right about it. Anyway, moved in, and we had a series of misfortunes having moved in, and it got to the point that I was arriving at the house and I didn't want to go in the house. It just, something felt as I felt as though I wasn't welcome. Anyway, moved in, and after probably about a week, my daughters were in. We'd set their bedrooms up. About sort of 3:30 in the morning, one of my daughters cried out, and I went in. She's in the front bedroom. She went in, floods of tears. She was 7 at the time. Floods of tears, couldn't tell me what was wrong. And as I was sort of sitting there, sort of chatting to her, trying to settle her down, I sort of thought, I can hear a voice. I'm sure I can hear voices. And it's a semi-detached house, but I could hear sort of voices. And it's mumbly voices. You couldn't pin where the voices were coming from, but I was sure I could hear voices. So I thought, weird. Anyway, my daughter went, I'm thirsty. So I said, okay. So came out of her bedroom. There's a flight of stairs just outside of her bedroom door. Got to the top of the stairs, looked down, and at the bottom of the stairs, where I never felt comfortable, there was this sort of grey mass. As I say, it was 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning. Grey mass, and nothing, you couldn't pick out any detail on it. But it was one of these, it was really weird. It was, part of me was sort of thinking, that's not right, and part of me was sort of half awake, half asleep. So I went to the bottom of the stairs, got to the bottom of the stairs, and I couldn't turn my back on it. I had to walk away from it towards the kitchen. What was the kitchen? Couldn't turn my eyes away from it, but as I sort of walked away, it just seemed to sort of dissipate, and all that I could feel was this feeling of cold. It was August, absolutely incredible cold. In the morning, I sort of woke up and I went, I can't stand this house, we've got to get out of this house. And she went, what is it? And I sort of said, I told her what had happened, the grey figure at the bottom of the stairs. And she sort of went, I sort of said, have you had experiences? And she sort of said, yeah. She said, I keep getting the feeling that I'm being watched. I keep getting the feeling that there's somebody looking over my shoulder. And she sort of said, there's been a few times, there's a utility room. I said, there's been a few times I've been loading stuff into the washing machine, and I've turned around because I've sensed there's someone behind me, and I thought it was you. So I turned around, there's no one there. So she sort of said, yeah, I've sort of had the same feeling as well. Strangely, the people that had moved out, basically they sort of said that they'd moved out because of financial difficulties and they couldn't afford to keep the house. The odd thing was that they actually then moved into a more expensive house. As time went on, my eldest daughter, who was living with us at the time, she would sort of say, there's something weird about this house. We hadn't mentioned it to the girls, we didn't want to sort of panic them. But she sort of said, there's something weird about this house. She said, I often see things moving out the corner of my eye. She said, you're doing something and you'll see something move, you turn around, there's nothing there. Izzy, my next daughter, who's 21 this year, she was living at the very top of the house, and she said that she'd noticed about 3 o'clock in the morning. She's one of these, she can't sleep. She said 3 o'clock in the morning, oftentimes there was a cold draft would come through her bedroom. And she sort of said, she felt that there was something unusual about it. But we lived with it. We just sort of got used to the fact that these things were happening. You'd often have knocks. We'd be sitting watching television, and it would sound as though somebody was brushing outside the room, and they'd hit the skirting board with a broom. One occasion we were sitting again watching television, and we heard crockery chinking in the kitchen. Which was interesting because at that stage we'd actually moved the kitchen to another room, so it wasn't even, there was no crockery where the chinking noise would have come from. My 7-year-old, she wakes up quite early. She'd woken up one morning, was playing on her iPad, and she'd just been watching videos and things like that. And when I went in to see her, she sort of said, it was funny, I was watching my iPad and something stroked my face, but not fazed by it, not upset by it, which we were really pleased about. But it was one of these things, we still hadn't said anything to them, we still haven't said anything now. As my wife puts it, you feel as though you're sharing the house with someone else. Christmas last year was a really strange one. Everything was fine. We had my parents over, and my 2 oldest daughters, they were over, daughters' partners. We were sitting in the lounge after having a meal. I suppose it was probably about 6 o'clock in the evening, and something ran the whole length of the outside corridor. It was so loud that everyone turned round and looked, almost expecting something to run past the door, but nothing did. And everyone sort of looked at everybody. It was sort of, what was that? And we were sort of like, we Becky and myself, my wife and myself, sort of said, it was we think it's probably the neighbours, because we didn't want everyone to sort of freak out about it. My daughter wasn't feeling particularly well, she had a bit of a sore throat, so I sort of said, I'll go downstairs. Again, probably about 3 o'clock. She sort of said, I've got this sore throat, I don't feel well, so I said, I'll go down and get you something from the kitchen, we've got a medicine cabinet down there. Came down the flight of stairs, and about halfway down the flight of stairs, looked into the lounge door, and standing in the lounge door there was a figure wearing sort of almost like 1930s clothes, trousers with a sort of sharp pleat down the front of them, white shirt, what looked like a sort of sleeveless green pullover. The weird thing, I couldn't see a face, but it was a fraction of a second. It was there long enough to sort of to make a note of there was a character there. The only way I can describe the way he was dressed, it was almost like Wallace from the Wallace and Gromit cartoons. But I mean, I was fully awake, so obviously it wasn't a dream or anything like that. But yeah, it's become a family home now. We're quite happy living there. It's one of these things. I'm happy being there on my own, but it's one of these things when you're doing something and then you look over your shoulder because you think you see a movement and you're on your own. That's times when you do feel a bit strange about it. But it's hopefully at some stage we're going to try and find out a bit of the history of the house. It was built in 1937, but whoever was living there, I'm not sure. But yeah, we'd like to find out more.